Good day, everybody. So, in this video, we're going to be covering the Isc2 CC domain 1 to domain 3. So, this video is supposed to be a summary of the Isc2, maybe few minutes or an hour max before you enter your exam, or just to help you kickstart your study if you're not familiar with cybersecurity concepts and you're going to be preparing for the Isc2 CC exam. This is going to be a whole lot of guide just for you to have an idea of what the main topics in the Isc2 domains is talking about, and this is also going to help you for your further studies when it comes to Isc2 further studies on the domains. So that's what this particular class is all about. So we're going to be covering from domain 1 to domain 3 in this video. I want to make it as short as possible, as I said, so it will be a summary prior to you entering the exam. Let's say 1 hour to entering the exam, you can always watch a video and just understand those concepts again, or you want to kickstart your study and you want to get just basic understanding of what the concept ICT is covering is. So let's get right into it. Okay, so the first thing we are going to be covering in this particular domain of Isc2 from domain 1 is security concepts and the CIA triad. So we're going to be looking at the CIA triad and security concepts. So now, what is the CIA triad? The CIA triad is a widely used model in information security that represents the core principle of securing data and system. The three components of the CIA triad are confidentiality, integrity, and availability. Now, what this is saying basically is the CIA triad is something we use in cybersecurity. Layman understand this, something we use in cybersecurity to make sure that data is being secured, information are being protected and accessed when needed, basically. So the whole idea of the CIA triad framework and model is just to make sure that data is being protected and accessed when it is needed. Now, when it is needed and being protected, it is being accessed by the people that are supposed to be able to access that data, meaning authorized users. So you have data stored somewhere, you'll be able to access your data and it's not going to be a problem. That is what the CIA triad is covering when it comes to these things. So now the CIA triad is a concept looking at covering all these things, from data protection to making sure your privacy is intact, to making sure that the people that are supposed to be accessing data are the ones accessing those data, not the unauthorized users, making sure that your data has not been changed, tampered with, and it's properly protected by whoever you've given the right to be your protection body, or by you, depending on what you're protecting. So this is not just data. I hope you understand that we're referring to information too, which is also data. So that is the concept the CIA triad is trying to talk about here. So now let's look at things that the CIA triad comprise of. As I said, the CIA stands for confidentiality, integrity, and availability. Now, it is very simple. Confidentiality is ensuring that data is accessed by authorized users, meaning unauthorized users should not have access to your data. Only you, that is an authorized user of that data or owner of that data, should be able to access it. That is what confidentiality is trying to cover. If you're the owner of something, information or data, you're the one that have access to it. Simple and short. Now, integrity is looking at data is accurate, consistent, and protected from unauthorized modification. Now, what integrity is looking at is data is not tampered with. If you have 1 MB of a picture you took with your phone now, that 1 MB should not change to 1 KB. It should not change to 2 KB. Do you understand? That 1 MB of that picture, you want to still meet that 1 MB. Now, if it change, that means the data of that picture has been compromised and modified. So integrity is looking at those data, or the data you have is not compromised, modified, and is still the same as its original self. That is what integrity is looking at. This data you have is still the same as its original self. It has not been changed, it has not been tampered with, nobody has had access to it. Now, how do you know that data has been tampered? It is when you check the metadata. Now, what's metadata? The properties of that data, the size of the data, the time the data was taken, etc. So, once anything change or there's been a modification, you can tell the integrity of this data has been tampered with. Now, you can also see the availability of the data. Now, what availability is talking about is the data of that particular data you're trying to protect is always readily available to you, the owner of the data. So availability is reaching out to, okay, if I want to see my data today, if I have a picture I took on my mobile device today and I want to access it, I can access it. It's not I will be able to access it tomorrow. If I want to access it now, I can access it. If I want to access it tomorrow, I can access it. If I want to access it after a month, I can access it. If I want to access it after a week, I can access it. That's what availability is covering. Not issues like it is not available or you can't access it at a particular period of time for some reasons. No. Availability has been compromised when you have that kind of issue. Availability is stating that particular data, you can access it whenever you want. Integrity is stating that that same data, the way you left it is the way it is. Nobody has tampered with it. And confidentiality is saying that nobody have had access to it except you, the owner of the data. That is what the CyberSecurity stands for. So it's a model and a framework that governs almost, if in short, everyone in the cybersecurity field. We make sure data is not accessed by unauthorized users. We make sure it's accessed by authorized users. We make sure it has not changed, and we make sure it's available to the owners. So it's total protection. Do you understand? So that is what the CIA triad is looking at. So basically, now we'll be going to our next slide to see other things that are under the CIA triad. So yes, still under the CIA triad, we have authentication, non-repudiation, and privacy. Now, these are like subs under the CIA triad, and we're going to be covering them and seeing what they are. Now, authentication is the ability to make sure that an authorized user is the one trying to access whatever thing or program or data or information that he wants to access. That is what authentication is covering. So authentication is covering that, okay, I am the one that owns particular document, particular data, particular information, and I want to access it. Now, how am I sure that you're the one that want to access this particular document, data, or information? By verifying that it is you that is the authorized user. Now, how do we verify? We verify with passwords. We verify with biometrics. So authentication is looking at, okay, we are confirming that this person is the one that is accessing this particular document. How we confirm it? As I said, with password, biometrics, multi-factor authentication. That is more than one means of accessing. So it could be password, it could be biometrics, it could be password, it could be OTP. Now, going further, you can say things like password, what the person knows, biometric, who the person is, and OTP, what the person has, which is, okay, you have access to your phone, your email address, they send you a code. Password is that you know your password, you're the one that set the password for you to be able to access that particular document or data. And biometric is who you are, basically. Now, looking at non-repudiation, this is ensuring that actions or transactions cannot be denied by third parties that are involved, often through logs or digital signatures. Now, this is the action to tell you that whatever that is being carried out on the system. Let's say you do a transfer, you log into a system, would know you're the person because it is you that is really user that has the access to that particular document or that particular data. So, for example, it is also saying that it is the only way we can say that okay, this thing was accessed is because it's accessed by a trusted party. So, now what non-reputation is saying is that everything that is happening is being monitored and we can tell who touches what. For example, your bank statement is of yours. Why? Because it is your bank, is your details that you used to open the account. Now, that bank statement, you can't deny the transactions that happened there because you're the ones that have been making the transfers, etc. So that's what non-reputation is. It's telling you that you can't deny being involved in whatever transaction or whatever dealings that happen because we know you're involved with it because these things are connected to you. Do you understand? So you can't deny what is going on. Now, privacy, on the other hand, is looking at protecting personal information from unauthorized access or disclosure. Now, privacy is what you have and you're trying to secure, and nobody's able to get it. Simple and short. Now, privacy and authentication is an example of confidentiality because what is it doing? Is preventing unauthorized users the access to private documents or private data or private information. So authentication and privacy falls under the same niche, which is confidentiality. Are we following? Because privacy, as I said, protecting personal information from unauthorized access. And that is what confidentiality is. Authentication too is verifying someone that is the real owner of the data you're trying to access. So those two falls under confidentiality. All right, so now let's move on to the next slide and continue this discussion. So we have BCP. Now, what is BCP talking about? BCP is talking about business continuity plan. Now, this is a particular document that is used in cybersecurity to plan what happens after an incident. And prior to the incident is when we make this plan. Now, this plan is very similar to the IRP, which is Incident Response Plan, but the difference is this focuses on what happens next after the incident, not how to respond to the incident. Now, how to respond to the incident is also a part of BCP, which is IRP. That the IRP plan is also a part of the BCP, but the BCP is a head body because it governs a lot of things like how to continue the business, how to respond to the business, disaster recovery, etc. Business impact analysis. It covers a lot of things, a whole lot of things. So it's a fully documented plan that tells you and outlines strategies of ways to maintain the business and how to come out from an incident or a critical operation disruption. Do you understand? So for responding to cyber incidents like IT failures or other emergencies, the BCP is going to be the plan you would need to respond to them. So just like I said, is an entirety plan that is made to continue the business. So whatever business goal the organization have, you want it to continue. Now let's move to the BIA. So the BIA, on the other hand, is all about seeing the impact of cyber attacks. Is looking at the impact of cyber attacks. So the BIA is also a branch under BCP now that looks at the actual assets an organization have, what is very important and what is not important, and rate them. Now, why are we doing this? Is because we want to know in case of an incident or in case of a disaster, let's know what impact it will have on what asset, and if that impact is going to be good or bad, something we can tolerate or something we can't. So BIA is looking at the impact of whatever incident that wants to happen. You understand? So it's about analyzing like the business to know what is important and analyzing if there's going to be risks and what the impact of that risk is going to be on the business. That is what the BIA is actually trying to look at. You understand? So BIA is talking about that. So it's about risk assessment, identifying potential risks, and trying to categorize it properly and make sure that business is still in function even after whatever incident that is going to be happening. So business impact analysis is BIA, and that is what it's looking at. So now we want to move to IRP. IRP is incident response plan. Now this is a plan also made prior to an incident. It's very similar to the BCP. It is closely related to it, but the IRP can work as an entity on its own or under the BCP. Note now, the IRP is looking at a plan to respond to an incident. Now, the BCP is looking at continuing the business in case of an incident. The BI is looking at the impact of any risks on the business organization. Now, the IRP is looking at if there's an incident, how do you respond close to it, or how do you respond to it? If there's a malware attack on our system, how do we respond to it? We get an anti-malware. If there's a cyber attack, if there's a phishing attack, how do we respond to it? We ignore the phishing mail or we ignore the phishing message. Now, this is the plan we use to respond to certain cyber attacks, and it is implemented by the IR team. That's the incident response team. But the plan is made prior to the incident to plan out this is what we are going to do in case of an incident. I hope you understand. So if there's a fire outbreak, everybody knows the drill because that particular incident of fire outbreak has already been planned down on how we respond to it. So the IRP is creating a plan in case there's a fire outbreak. How do we respond to it? In this organization, everybody follows the back door, everybody moves in the line, nobody's running. So it's a plan to state this is what we do in case there's an incident. If there's a cyber attack, what do we do? So the DRP, on the other hand, is disaster recovery plan. Now, this disaster recovery plan is a plan made specifically to make sure that data, information, and IT systems are recovered after an incident. So it focuses on recovering data or information. It is under the BCP and it focuses on IT systems, hardwares, data, information, recovering them after a system failure, a ransomware attack, whatever kind of breach we have. So it's recovering from a disaster. Mind you, disaster can be physical too. When we have flooding in a server room or things of sort, how do we recover from such things? That's what disaster recovery is from. So disaster recovery is talking about how do we recover after the incident has happened. How do we move forward from there and get our details back? If there's stolen data loss, how do we get it back? That is what disaster recovery plan is all about. So it's a plan made to know how do we recover from a particular incident if one actually happens. So now let's talk about RTO and RPO. RTO stands for Recovery Time Objective and RPO stands for Recovery Point Objective. This is under disaster recovery, under the BCP. This is talking about where are we recovering from and how long will it take us to recover. So now let's assume we have two systems, a system of 10 years old and a system of a month old. Now that a month old system we've had is used to back up the 10 years old system because the 10-year-old system has outstayed and it might go out of place and crash or have a failure at some point. So we backed up whatever on the 10 years old system on the 1 month old system we just bought that is freshly used. Now what recovery point objective is asking is what point in case that 10 years old system goes bad are we recovering from on the new system, which is a month old update. Now, RTO is stating how long will it take this recovery to happen? What is the time frame? If that 10 year system goes bad now, what is the time frame that the new system of a month old will continue the operation of our business? That is recovery time objective. So how long will it take? Will it take 2 seconds? Will it take one day? Will it take one week? Will it take one month to make sure our business process has continued? That the point objective is saying that, okay, since the last update on that new system was a month ago from that 10 years old system, that is the point we're recovering from a month ago files, not the ones that have happened last week or 2 weeks ago. But the recovery time is how long will it take for the new system to continue operations, which is in the next one week, in the next one day, in the next 1 second, in the next 2 minutes. Now, if the recovery time is taking longer, then business operations will be affected. So we always want to do it that the recovery time is sooner than normal, and the recovery point is as updated as possible from whatever system is being backed up. So this is under data recovery or disaster recovery under BCP. So that is what this tool is talking about. Now, they can't have disaster recovery without having to update and backup files. That's one thing you should understand. So when you're recovering from disaster, you should know that backup files are very important. That's why I gave the scenario of two systems having to function to do one operation, and one is older than the other one. In case one is goes down, the other one carries on. The more backups you have, the more chances you have to continue business operation from where it stopped. So that is what the RTO and RPO actually covers. So under disaster recovery, we have what we call redundant system, and this is a backup system that ensures that critical infrastructures services continues and remain operational. That's why I said when the 10 years old system dies, the new system continues. So those backups are important. And high availability is talking about solutions involve deploying resources to make sure that there is balance in the network. So imagine a network of 4 systems, we want to balance the workload of that particular network to the 4 systems, not just to one system, to make sure that business operation is going smoothly. Because once every interaction is directed to one system, now there is overload on the operations. So we want it to go to one system. So that's what high availability and redundant system is really addressing. So it's a part of BCP and disaster recovery to make sure everything is going smoothly in case of incident, business continues. I hope you're following. And they continue on time, RTO, and they continue from the point when them to continue. I hope you. So that is what these particular slides are actually trying to teach. All right, so let's get to the next one. So now we want to look at these three things here. We want to look at risk management, we want to look at risk priority and risk tolerance. Now, risk management is all about identifying, assessing, and mitigating risks. Risks is that incidents, likely incidents to come. We want to be able to identify them, assess them, and mitigate them. You understand? And save our assets. Now, risk priority, on the other hand, is talking about prioritizing potential impact and likelihood. So, prioritizing the assets first that might be impacted if there's a risk, and prioritizing risks based on which one is more important. For example, a malware attack that is ransomware and a virus attack that can just be handled immediately. What is more important for priority? You prioritize the ransomware because it's taking charge of your system and a lot of things than a small virus that you can just quickly delete. So that's risk priority. Now, for risk tolerance is how much risk can an organization bear that will not kill it. So, for example, your organization makes $1,000 every week. If there's a risk that is $100 a week, the organization can bear the risk and say, okay, it's $100, we'll settle it. But when an organization makes $1,000 and the risk tolerance, or there's a risk that is $2,000, $5,000, the organization cannot bear that risk. So risk tolerance is looking at what can the organization bear and be able to take if there's a risk. So that is what risk tolerance is trying to address. How much can this organization take as an impact in case there's a risk happening? So we have risk identification, risk assessment, and risk treatment when we're discussing risk management. Now, risk identification is about knowing and identifying that there is a potential risk and vulnerability that is around. Then risk assessment is looking at evaluating to make sure that that risk is actually true and what are the likelihood of the impact on our business or organization. So you first identify it, recognize it, make sure that it is there. Then you actually assess it to make sure that it's true and not a false alarm, because some risks can be false alarms. So you want to know that okay, this is true, this is a real risk, and this is what is going to be impacting our business if we don't mitigate it immediately, if we don't treat it. Now that brings us to risk treatment. So risk treatment is all about mitigating or remediating that particular risk. That is getting rid of the issue. If there's a malware attack, we're getting an anti-malware to delete those malwares. Simple and short. That is risk treatment. If there is likely to be a malware attack, we have anti-malware saved on our systems or on our laptops to get rid of those malwares. Simple and short. So there are different type of risk treatment. You can avoid the risk treatment by transferring the risk to another person, and this is a case where a company or an individual cannot handle that particular risk. You can transfer it to another person. You can also avoid the risk by making sure that it does not come at you at all. You set policies in place to make sure that those risks does not happen to you. For example, no external flash can be used in an organizational system to avoid the use or spread of malware through flash drives. You've avoided that risk. Now, mitigating it is treating the risk in case it comes in, meaning if the malware comes into the system, you have an anti-malware to get rid of it. So that is what we mean by risk avoidance, transfer, and mitigation under risk treatment. That is what is addressing. So we have security controls. Now we have the technical control, physical control, and administrative control. Technical control is talking about firewalls, antivirus, anti-malwares, anything involving system cyber attacks. Those are technical controls. Encryption, those are technical controls. You set up technical controls to counter them. So if there's a malware, you have an anti-malware. If the cyber attack is a phishing attack, you have anti-phishing tools to get rid of those attacks. You have firewalls to place boundaries, and you have encryption to make sure your system is safe. That is for technical controls. Then we have the physical controls that involves fence, locks, guards, doors, CCTV to monitor the environment of our organization to make sure that people are not coming physically to harm us, harm our data, steal our data, etc. That is physical control kept in place for physical attacks. Then we have the administrative controls. This is where policies, procedures, practices, trainings come in to make sure that people are aware that they need to take out some particular actions to make sure that they are not vulnerable. Simple and short. So this administrative control involves even giving permissions to access to right authorities when it's time, and making sure those particular right authorities are the ones gaining the access, not people that are unauthorized. So that's administrative control. Policies in place to make sure okay, you that owns that data, you have access to it. The one that does not own it does not have access. So the administrator will give access to the right people. So that's what administrative control is all about. Technical control, things involving cyber attack, malware systems, system failures, etc. Physical control, physical security, gas, door, lock, lights, administrative control, policies, trainings, etc. Granting permissions, etc. So that's what we have under security controls. So the next one we would like to look at is Isc2 code of ethics. Now, for the sake of the exam, I need you to know that these words can be interchanged. This is Isc2 code of ethics, and you need to know them word for word during the exam. This is my advice to you because you will need at least 5 questions from here or even 10, and they might be interchanged word for word. You might see things like protect society, act honorable, etc., and that will not be the answer. So you have to know them word for word. So now, what is this saying? Protect the society, protect the public, the common good, and infrastructure. Now, IC2 is expecting you as a cybersecurity professional to be able to protect society, protect the public, the common good, and every infrastructure you walk into or work in. Now, act honorable, be honest, just, responsible, and legal. You don't tell lies in this field of cybersecurity. You make sure that you act honorable and say the truth. Provide competent service. Whatever you're doing in the field of cybersecurity must be the best and not something people will look back at you and say he didn't do a good job. Advancing your profession is talking about learning more, growing the field of cybersecurity. Don't just stay in one position. So we don't want you to just take CC exam. We want you to advance and take more exams, professional exams to grow yourself in this field. So that is what Isc2 Code of Ethics actually talks about. But as I said, for the exam, know them word for word because they can interchange words, and that is what will be your own downfall during the exam. And I just hope nobody fails the exam. So now let's go to our next slide. So now we've discussed S2 Code of Ethics. We want to discuss governance processes. We want to look at policies, standard, procedures, and acts and laws, regulations and laws. Now, policies is a high level principle that guides an entire organization. It is the first level of command that you receive that everybody has to follow, from managers down to the lowest staff. Policies. Now, standard is a benchmark set to make sure that those policies and those practices are being followed. So, policy is saying don't bring in your phone into the organization. Standard is saying your phone must not come in to the organization between any time, even if it's during lunch break, and the only time you are allowed to use your phone is maybe during the weekends when there are no working hours. Something more strict. So the thing you should understand is that standards are actually strict, procedures are strict, policies and guidelines are not strict. Procedures is step by step instruction carrying out those policies. If they say don't bring your phone or bring your phone to office, it's telling you this is how you bring your phone to the office. When you come, make sure you log in that your phone is with you if you're coming to the office. If you're not bringing your phone to the office, you also tell us why you didn't bring your phone to the office. So this is step by step how policies should be followed. Standard is going to be strict to make sure that okay, this is the benchmark. Anything more than this will not allow it. But the policies are high level principles to guide the entire organization on how to go. And we have the regulations and laws. Now these are the bodies that govern everything in that particular location. So these are the bodies that govern that your location and that your sector of the organization. If it's in the medical sector, we have things like HIPAA governing them to make sure data is protected and no loss of patients and the entire staffs in that organization. Now, HIPAA is directed for some particular countries, like GDPR is directed for people in the EU. HIPAA is directed for people in the US. So you need to know the regulation for your country and the laws that they follow because they always are different based on your location and your region. So you need to know. So that's all regulations and laws are. They are bodies in the sector that everybody under that sector will follow. Simple and short. Alright, so we've come to the end of this domain 1 to 3 of the CC exam for IC2. I wish you success in your exam as you go forth. Alright, see you on the next one.